In the gilded corridors of Buckingham Palace, a hushed tension rippled through the air. Word had spread of a stunning revelation. Princess Anne's private records apparently linking Meghan Markle to Prince Andrew's notorious yacht days. A single mention in these discreet documents was enough to ignite global fascination. Courtiers exchanged anxious glances, while behind closed doors, the royal family braced for a scandal that could undermine its very foundations. Why did this leak matter so profoundly? Because it hinted at hidden alliances and uncertain motives, an unprecedented crossroad for Harry, who finds himself caught in the fallout. As palace staff hurried along marble halls, whispers of betrayal and cover-up echoed, promising an explosive conflict unlike any before. Behind the grandeur of centuries-old pageantry lies an institution bound by intricate rules, protocols, and unwritten conventions that have long dictated how royal affairs are managed, revealed, or concealed. When whispers began circulating that Meghan Markle's past might intersect with Prince Andrew's discreet leisure activities, many within the royal household worried that these murmurs would collide violently with deeply ingrained traditions. At the heart of the institution is an age-old principle of self-regulation, typically summarized by the maxim "never complain, never explain," a motto that has helped the Windsors maintain a certain mystique, allowing them to navigate controversies without engaging in prolonged public discourse. Yet, this unofficial policy grows increasingly difficult to sustain in a world dominated by 24-hour news cycles, social media chatter, and a global audience eager to dismantle every facade. Within the palace walls, senior courtiers and advisors found themselves caught in a delicate balancing act. Some recognized the urgent need for transparency, or at least for a carefully measured response that might quell public speculation before it spiraled further. Others advocated for a more traditional approach. Remain silent until genuine evidence surfaces, let the tabloids burn themselves out, and focus on upholding time-honored responsibilities such as state engagements, charity patronages, and ceremonial duties. This divergence in crisis management styles is not new, but it has become more pronounced with the entry of figures like Meghan, whose background, as an actress, an American, and a biracial woman, already tested the monarchy's ability to adapt to modern inclusivity. Now, the rumor that she had previous connections with Prince Andrew's questionable circles threatened to reignite old debates. Did her arrival truly herald a modernizing era, or did it strain the monarchy's ability to withstand relentless media scrutiny? Complicating matters is the monarchy's hierarchical structure, which grants certain members more latitude than others in addressing controversy. Prince Andrew, for instance, once benefited from a long-standing tolerance within the royal system, partly because of his position as a direct child of the late Queen Elizabeth II, partly because the institution traditionally protects its own with formidable discretion. Over the years, however, repeated scandals, from associations with disreputable financiers to the disastrous BBC interview, pushed him into near exile from public life. Yet, the fact that he remains a prince, even if in title only, ensures that his actions, present or past, reflect on the monarchy as a whole. Against that backdrop, Meghan's rumored entanglement with Andrew's Mediterranean gatherings carries enormous symbolic weight. If verified, it suggests that the palace's decision to embrace her might have overlooked certain red flags. If untrue, it still underscores how quickly suspicion can erode public confidence when a monarchy is involved. Princess Anne's role in this escalating situation did not arise from vacuum. Known among insiders for her steadfast commitment to what she views as genuine royal duty, a concept emphasizing service, frugality, and minimal public spectacle, and has earned respect for her tireless schedule of engagements and her refusal to be swayed by popularity metrics. She is neither showy nor overtly political, preferring direct action over elaborate displays. Nonetheless, she has also cultivated a formidable network of advisors and loyal staff who share her rigorous standards. Among them is Sir Reginald Fairborn, a longtime confidant rumored to have spearheaded various behind-the-scenes reviews of royal protocols whenever controversies loomed. Sir Reginald, described by some as more old-fashioned than the monarchy itself, believes wholeheartedly in preserving the dignity of the crown through silence and symbolic gestures rather than open confrontation with the media. According to Palace Whispers, even he was unsettled by the latest developments, privately acknowledging that unaddressed rumors can become more corrosive than any direct statement. Other aides, such as Lady Fiona Braithwaite, who came to the royal household after years managing corporate crises in London's financial district, take a different perspective. Lady Fiona is said to have pressed for a concise, official clarification the moment the yacht story began to trend on social platforms, believing that partial truths or ambiguous leaks would fuel a relentless cycle of speculation. To Lady Fiona, the mounting tension is symptomatic of a modern communications dilemma. The monarchy no longer holds a monopoly on its narrative. In earlier eras, discreet nods to favored journalists could swiftly redirect public interest. But with digital platforms and global networks capitalizing on every hint of scandal, the royal institution's customary aloofness risks being interpreted as culpable silence. This internal debate about public relations strategy highlights broader disagreements about what the monarchy should represent in the 21st century. Some staff see Meghan's entry into the family as a golden opportunity for the Windsors to display adaptability, inclusiveness, and a willingness to engage new demographics. Her background, activism, and approach to connecting with communities seemed at first to offset the stuffy image that critics often pinned on the royals. Others, however, were wary from the start, wondering how someone so comfortable with media attention and American-style self-branding would fit within a culture that traditionally values stoicism and restraint over personal candor. Discomfort with Meghan's approach existed in subtle glances during official events, in the mild tension around protocol, such as hugging well-wishers or speaking too directly about personal challenges. Now, if the rumors about her having once been part of Andrew's Mediterranean circle were even partially accurate, it would vindicate the skeptics who cautioned that her past might return to haunt both her and the monarchy. Meanwhile, the public reaction has proved anything but uniform. In the United Kingdom, royal watchers appear split into several camps. One contingent finds the entire notion of yachting associations unsubstantiated, an ugly rumor generated by tabloids that have never fully embraced Meghan. Another group sees this as an inevitable outcome of the Windsors' reluctance to modernize genuinely, describing the monarchy's silence as emblematic of an institution stuck in archaic traditions. Then there are the fervent defenders, people who admire both Harry and Meghan for stepping back from royal duties, claiming their plight confirms just how rigid and unwelcoming the monarchy remains. But across all these factions is a shared fascination with anything that might reveal hidden rifts within the House of Windsor, a curiosity amplified by social media networks that churn daily with new insider revelations, many of which remain unverified. Internationally, the story has caused a ripple effect as well. American outlets in particular, where Meghan once enjoyed near-celebrity status independent of her royal connection, now find themselves grappling with a more complicated narrative. In the U.S., some outlets have turned the allegations into a broader conversation about social mobility, the cost of fame, and the double standards applied to women who navigate elite circles in search of opportunity. Others, less sympathetic, frame it as a personal accountability issue. If Meghan did attend these exclusive yacht events alongside figures like Prince Andrew, was she aware of his questionable reputation? Did she benefit socially or professionally from those connections? And if so, how does that square with the philanthropic, enlightened image she projects now? Simultaneously, the global media machine has put unprecedented pressure on the crown to respond in a manner that both protects the institution's reputation and acknowledges widespread public interest and transparency. Traditional monarchical rules about dignity and secrecy conflict with the unstoppable force of digital journalism, where speculation can flourish unchecked. In this environment, even minor factual inaccuracies can be amplified, overshadowing official denials or clarifications that might come too late. The crown finds itself walking a tightrope. Any admission could be spun as a scandal, Yet ignoring the story entirely might lend it even greater plausibility in the public mind. These circumstances create a climate of considerable anxiety within the palace. Some staff worry about their roles, whether they could be scapegoated if the story takes a turn for the worse, or if they might be asked to sign additional confidentiality agreements to prevent further leaks. Others hint that deeper structural changes are urgently needed. A more robust communications team, updated guidelines for crisis management, and a willingness to address controversies head-on rather than dismissing them with curt no-comment statements. Still, the monarchy's long history of overcoming storms through calculated silence causes many to believe this too shall pass, provided the narrative can be diverted elsewhere. They recall how earlier royal scandals eventually faded, replaced by fresh news cycles and shifting public attention. Yet the conversation keeps returning to the one question that underscores the tension. Did senior members of the royal family or their closest advisors know about Meghan's alleged past associations, but choose not to act? That query reframes the potential scandal into a matter of institutional responsibility and oversight, rather than personal failing. If it turns out that warnings were ignored or intentionally buried, critics will argue that the monarchy knowingly placed itself in a compromising position just to appear modern and progressive. Conversely, if the entire rumor is discredited, detractors will call for a thorough explanation of how such a damaging falsehood gained traction in the first place. No matter which scenario unfolds, the monarchy's capacity to maintain public trust hangs in the balance, and the stakes are heightened by the family's uneasy dynamic with the media. In the midst of this tension, everyday Britons are left feeling a mixture of weary fascination and mild cynicism, having witnessed a parade of royal crises over the decades. They question if the House of Windsor can still lay claim to moral authority or cultural leadership when it so often appears consumed by internal strife. Nonetheless, the British public remains deeply invested because the royal family functions as a kind of national soap opera, an emblem of tradition that is also in constant flux. The prospect that Princess, and long respected as the embodiment of dutiful service, might have uncovered something truly compromising about Meghan resonates powerfully. Anne herself is typically seen as incorruptible, which makes her alleged involvement even more provocative. Meanwhile, outside the palace, protesters and supporters alike gather in front of iron gates, holding signs or chanting slogans, though not in overwhelming numbers. The public's reaction is more ambient and dispersed, percolating through talk shows, radio discussions, and workplace chats. Social media hashtags trend intermittently, with people posting theories, memes, or demands that the monarchy come clean. A sense of impatience builds, fed by every hour of silence from official royal channels. Those close to the family wonder if the monarchy might finally yield to demands for a carefully scripted statement, clarifying the severity or insignificance of these rumored links. But so far, no such statement has arrived. And until it does, speculation will continue to escalate, putting additional strain on a royal institution already straining to find a balance between secrecy and disclosure, tradition and modernity. It is precisely this tension between the monarchy's old ways of managing scandal and a new era of ceaseless scrutiny that propels the crisis toward ever higher stakes. Advisors who strive to contain the fallout confront the reality that every misstep or equivocation can instantly become worldwide news, magnified by echo chambers online. Even inside the palace, younger staff members quietly question whether the monarchy's refusal to adapt might hasten its decline, while older courtiers maintain that unity and silence are the only bulwarks against a full-blown implosion. Hovering over all this is the unavoidable truth that stories of scandal will persist as long as the public remains thirsty for them. And the public, enthralled by anything that peels back the gilded veneer, shows no sign of looking away. The days leading up to the rumored confrontation buzzed with an electric undercurrent that seemed to permeate every hallway of Buckingham Palace, fueling hushed speculations among staff and onlookers alike. In the communications office, junior aides and senior advisors alike wrestled with overflowing inboxes, fielding calls from insistent journalists and juggling a mounting list of interview requests from networks worldwide. Weathered press secretaries, once confident in their ability to steer the monarchy's narrative, now found themselves scrambling to keep pace with an onslaught of questions about Princess Anne's alleged dossier, Meghan's rumored connections, and Andrew's precarious standing in the royal fold. Meanwhile, courtiers moved with an urgency rarely seen outside of state occasions. From footmen delivering discreet messages between private chambers to personal secretaries updating color-coded schedules in real time, everyone sensed that something monumental was just beyond the horizon, a moment that might shift the royal family's trajectory for years to come. Seasoned correspondents, used to covering every royal whisper, commented that the atmosphere was eerily reminiscent of previous flashpoints. Episodes like Megxit or the aftermath of a particularly scandalous BBC interview. Except this time, the tension felt even more acute. Throughout the palace's warren of corridors, staff who rarely interacted found themselves sharing anxious glances, aware that a single remark taken out of context could fuel a fresh wave of speculation across tabloids eager for the next twist. Far from the palace grounds, the press mobilized at an unprecedented scale. Major TV networks dispatched camera crews to stake out vantage points along the mall, braving damp autumn winds in hopes of capturing even the faintest sign of an imminent showdown. Veteran reporters who had covered Charles and Diana's tumultuous era flew in from various continents, sensing parallels that might yield career-defining headlines. Unverified leaks from inside sources ignited Twitter storms each morning, with every rumor dissected in real time by self-proclaimed royal experts and social media commentators. Breakfast shows speculated about the possibility of an urgent family summit, or perhaps a carefully choreographed meeting orchestrated by senior courtiers to quell the public frenzy. By afternoon, glossy websites ran photo essays of Meghan's past appearances. Every Yacht cameo or rumored high society event was re-examined and repackaged, stirring calls for urgent clarifications. Evening newscasts framed the monarchy's silence as either strategic or deafening, depending on the anchor's personal viewpoint, and viewers were left with the uncanny impression that a grand collision of interests lay just out of sight. Within the royal household, the sense of impending drama cut through even the most mundane routines. Palace chefs whispered about scaled-back menus for official luncheons, as though extravagant feasts felt incongruous in a moment tinged with unease. Royal protection officers rehearsed new protocols for managing reporters who might attempt to breach the gates, anxious that a single slip could lead to an unflattering spectacle on international news. Meanwhile, each family member's personal team seemed to be operating on a separate track. Prince William's private office, typically discreet, was rumored to be taking rapid counsel with legal experts, anticipating pointed questions about Andrew and how William might respond if confronted by the press. King Charles's advisors debated whether a neutral statement could restore calm or simply inflame curious minds hungry for confessions and regrets. Camilla's circle, known for its practicality, reportedly urged a proactive approach, perhaps a well-timed charitable engagement or a warm public appearance to project unity. Yet no matter which strategy one favored, the looming question remained: how would Princess Anne's evidence, or Meghan's explanation, if she provided one, fit into a carefully managed royal script? For Anne herself, each day seemed to carry a growing weight of responsibility. A figure known for her unwavering commitment to duty, she had rarely stepped into the limelight unless it served a charitable cause or an essential ceremony. Yet those within her trusted circle whispered that she had spent long hours in conversation with Sir Reginald Fairborn and a few other confidants, meticulously reviewing whatever documentation she had gathered about Meghan's rumored yacht days. Even more telling were the glimpses some staff claimed to have caught of and quietly pacing late at night through seldom-used palace corridors, a leather-bound notebook clutched under one arm. Those who knew her best interpreted this behavior as evidence of internal conflict. Despite a reputation for blunt honesty, she recognized that unveiling certain truths could inflict deep fractures upon her already embattled family. In the days ahead, she might be forced to choose between preserving personal integrity and sparing relatives, or so the speculation went. The tension underlying her every move contributed to an air of deep uncertainty among her staff, who found themselves tiptoeing around questions they dared not voice. On the other side of the Atlantic, Harry and Meghan remained in Montecito, enveloped in their own swirl of questions, if the tabloids were to be believed. A cadre of staff handled their press inquiries with tight-lipped uniformity, redirecting requests to a single email address that offered no new information. Rumors persisted that Meghan's legal team was sifting through any potential vulnerabilities in her early career timeline, trying to gauge the seriousness of Andrew-related insinuations. Meanwhile, those in Harry's orbit hinted that the prince was torn between frustration at seeing his wife's name dragged into yet another controversy and a growing worry that some part of the story might prove impossible to dismiss. Private calls from the UK, presumably from concerned family members, reportedly went unanswered or ended politely but abruptly, leaving even well-meaning relatives uncertain about his emotional state. Chatter about a possible return to Britain in the event of an emergency family meeting reached a fever pitch, with plane spotters scouring flight logs for any hint of Sussex arrivals. Yet as of now, both Harry and Meghan stayed put, fueling arguments that the pair might be waiting for a strategic moment to show up, or perhaps had no intention of returning at all. Amid all this speculation, Prince Andrew's reemergence loomed like a specter over every storyline. He kept to himself within the royal lodge, seldom seen except for fleeting glimpses captured by paparazzi stationed at a respectful but insistent distance. Though no official statement came from his corner, sources claimed that his small team of advisors was in disarray, unsure whether to maintain his current low profile or attempt some form of public rebuttal. A subdued Andrew, spotted, driving around the grounds, only stoked the press's appetite. They wondered if he too awaited a confrontation in which all accusations would be laid bare, forcing him to either refute them categorically or face another round of exile from the public eye. Some tabloids ran lurid headlines predicting Andrew's final downfall, while more measured outlets noted that, for now, the prince was still legally unscathed but precariously positioned. As the day of the rumored gathering drew nearer, details remained opaque. No official date, no location confirmed, no mention of who exactly would attend or how it might proceed. Yet every corner of the palace thrummed with speculation about the meeting, as staff called it, capitalizing the words in hushed tones as though referencing some pivotal, world-altering event. Florists hesitated over which arrangements might be required. Would there be a formal dinner or a private drawing room session? The household cavalry discreetly prepared cars in case last-minute arrivals needed to be ferried from airfields to palace entrances with minimal fuss. Even palace archivists, who normally busied themselves with historical documents and genealogical records, found themselves fielding inquiries about any letters or photographs relevant to Andrew's Mediterranean circles. Journalists, of course, played their own role in raising the tension. By midweek, headlines in tabloids like The Mirror, The Sun, and the Daily Mail hinted at secret memos and unconfirmed logs that might connect Meghan to Andrew's yacht soirees more definitively. Bigger international networks like CNN, BBC, and Sky News began dedicating significant airtime to the story, each bringing in specialists who picked apart the monarchy's historical crises for parallels. Some recalled the days when Edward VIII's abdication shook the empire to its core, speculating if the House of Windsor was once again at a threshold of existential change. Others pointed out that the monarchy had weathered worse, postulating that, while scandal might tarnish the crown, it rarely topples it. Social media, meanwhile, brimmed with conspiracy theories, tinted with everything from well-intentioned curiosity to blatant misinformation. Some insisted that the entire affair was orchestrated by palace insiders keen on removing Meghan from the royal equation. Others posited that it was a ploy to divert attention from Andrew's troubles by implicating someone else in his orbit. Whatever the theory, the net effect was the same: a swelling sense of inevitability that an explosive revelation or confrontation waited just around the corner. Within the palace, certain figures tried to carry on with normal duties. Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie were seen attending charitable events with poised smiles, possibly attempting to project an image of stability. Camilla made a scheduled visit to a hospital wing, graciously chatting with patients about their recoveries. Prince William quietly continued his climate-focused initiatives. Yet, the veneer of normalcy felt precarious. Every handshake, every photograph, every innocuous comment was measured against the backdrop of a monarchy on the edge of a potential rift. Even the staff in Clarence House, responsible for King Charles's daily affairs, noted how the king, usually stoic, seemed more pensive than usual, occasionally pausing mid-conversation as though his mind were elsewhere, weighing ramifications or anticipating the next wave of revelations. Each passing hour drew the royal family closer to whatever final reckoning lay ahead. Throughout London and beyond, people spoke with a flutter of excitement about the possibility of a major announcement, perhaps a palace statement or an impromptu news conference. Others speculated in hushed, more sorrowful tones that the House of Windsor might be bracing for an internal clash so severe that it could change the public's perception of the monarchy for generations. If a single revelation confirmed Meghan's involvement in Andrew's past, or, conversely, if new evidence exonerated her entirely, the aftermath would likely be as frenetic as the lead-up. Either scenario promised dramatic headlines and fervent commentary, and so the city thrummed with restless anticipation. From late-night television hosts crafting monologues to students gossiping at local pubs, the question was always the same. When will they finally face each other, and what will happen when they do? In an abrupt turn of events that few had anticipated, excerpts purportedly drawn from Princess Anne's private journals erupted across front pages worldwide, casting a searing spotlight on Meghan's alleged connections to Prince Andrew's circle of acquaintances and their secretive yacht gatherings. The impact on the palace was immediate and profound, as senior courtiers scrambled to verify how such personal reflections could have slipped into public view, while junior staff found themselves fielding an onslaught of confused calls from reporters demanding clarification. In hushed enclaves behind gilded doors, senior members of the royal family exchanged tense glances, acutely aware that any misstep could exacerbate an already volatile situation. Even for a household long accustomed to scandal and intrigue, these revelations had a uniquely jarring quality. Princess Anne, typically regarded as one of the most private and steadfast royals, had apparently chosen language that left little ambiguity about her view of Meghan's pre-royal history, and that in itself was startling. As word spread, a collective gasp seemed to ripple through British society, prompting fervent debates in living rooms, pubs, and chat forums. Across the Atlantic, networks like CNN and NBC News rushed to assemble special segments, dispatching correspondents to London for live updates. The timing alone, coming when many believed the monarchy was finding a fragile equilibrium after years of upheaval, fueled rampant speculation about deeper rifts within the House of Windsor. Seasoned commentators, who had previously insisted that the royals would close ranks behind closed doors, now expressed astonishment at seeing Anne's words laid out so plainly for public consumption. The Palace Press Office issued cautious statements that said little of substance, deflecting questions on whether the documents were genuine or how they might have found their way to journalists. This silence only inflamed the fires of conjecture, allowing tabloids to churn out headlines like "The Princess Speaks Her Mind" and "Hidden Yacht Escapades Threaten Royal Legacy," each article more sensational than the last. For Meghan, the news struck like a blow from a quarter she least expected. Having already faced relentless scrutiny from the moment she stepped into the royal limelight, she had grown somewhat used to criticism from tabloids and certain segments of the public. Yet discovering that Princess Anne, long regarded as a stoic figure who seldom engaged in personal vendettas, had not only harbored reservations, but also penned explicit details about her rumored connections to Andrew's social set, felt profoundly destabilizing. Confidants close to Meghan described her initial response as a mixture of shock and disbelief, followed by an undercurrent of sorrow at the realization that someone of Anne's stature seemed to doubt her sincerity. Pressed for a statement, her team found themselves in a precarious position. Publicly refuting and writings risked escalating tensions with a core member of the royal family, but staying silent could signal tacit acknowledgement of guilt. In urgent conference calls, legal advisors and publicists weighed the cost of denials against the possibility that more journal entries might surface, each more damaging than the last. Meanwhile, Prince Harry appeared visibly shaken, his usually composed demeanor replaced by a withdrawn reticence that alarmed those around him. He avoided public engagements, citing family obligations as a reason to remain secluded in the couple's Montecito home. Unconfirmed reports suggested he was making frantic phone calls to trusted friends within the United Kingdom, trying to parse fact from speculation. The release of Anne's journal excerpts seemed to open an emotional rift for Harry, reminding him of past traumas and exposing the possibility that even within his own extended family, alliances could be fragile. In private moments, he allegedly grappled with the grim realization that every step he had taken to protect Meghan might be undone by a single set of revelations from a beloved aunt. His silence, paradoxically, only stoked the media's appetite, as outlets characterized his reticence as either a tacit admission of wrongdoing on Meghan's part or a desperate attempt to shield her from further harm. Inside palace corridors, tension reached a near-fever pitch. Courtiers whispered about a growing sense of alarm that the monarchy's carefully maintained equilibrium was under assault from both internal strife and the relentless glare of external media. Princess Anne herself was said to be under immense strain. While steadfast in her convictions, she had never intended her personal notes to become ammunition in the public arena. Some in her retinue murmured that she felt torn between defending the credibility of her observations and containing the fallout that threatened to engulf the institution. The possibility that Anne might be summoned to clarify or even disavow her words loomed over the entire household, fueling speculation that a closed-door family summit was imminent. One rumored option involved a carefully moderated meeting at Balmoral or Sandringham, locations where the family traditionally gathered to hash out sensitive matters away from prying eyes. Yet with the press already in a frenzy, any movement by high-profile royals risked igniting more rumors than it dispelled. Outside the palace gates, the public reaction bordered on fervor. Groups who had once championed Meghan as a modernizing force for the monarchy now split into two camps. Those who questioned the sincerity of her philanthropic image, and those who believed Anne's allegations were part of a calculated effort to diminish Meghan's standing. Social media brimmed with impassioned debate. Hashtags alternately expressed solidarity with Meghan or condemnation over her supposed yacht-related exploits. Men and women of various backgrounds weighed in with think pieces, some focusing on the racial and class undertones of the controversy, others on the monarchy's historical tendency to protect its own at all costs. Street interviews revealed a populace both intrigued and weary of another royal scandal, uncertain whether to pity or scorn the family for once again becoming a magnet for global gossip. The emotional toll weighed heavily on multiple fronts. Palace aides discreetly confided that the Queen consort, Camilla, quietly worried the monarchy might be veering into territory beyond repair, recalling past crises that left deep scars on the Windsor's public image. Prince William, evidently conflicted, balanced his loyalty to family members against a desire to shield the monarchy from destabilizing headlines. Even senior staff, veterans of numerous royal controversies, found themselves uncharacteristically anxious, fretting that Anne's journal could contain further details nobody had yet glimpsed. A sense of looming catastrophe settled over official corridors, a feeling that if the family did not act decisively, they might be consumed by relentless speculation and factional disputes. From a psychological standpoint, observers noted a collective recoil. The monarchy had endured countless scandals over the centuries, yet rarely had a situation involved such pointed allegations connecting one family member's reputed private records to another's pre-royal social life. The personal nature of the revelations, which painted Meghan not merely as an outsider, but as an individual with a possibly murky past intersecting with Andrew's controversies, amplified the sense of betrayal and alarm. For onlookers, The scandal had an almost theatrical quality, unspooling in real time with each leaked page, each speculative headline, each shift in public sentiment. Yet beneath the spectacle, genuine human emotions simmered. Hurt, betrayal, confusion, and an overwhelming desire among some royals to close ranks and protect what remained of their family unity. By the end of that first week of revelations, it became impossible to downplay the magnitude of the situation. Though rumors of other pending leaks circulated, the immediate focus remained on clarifying the authenticity of Anne's journal entries and verifying Meghan's place, or absence, in Andrew's past gatherings. Questions swirled about how deeply the monarchy might investigate, or whether a strategic statement would suffice to calm the waters. Behind official statements that assured everyone the family was managing the matter internally, tensions reached a crescendo, setting the stage for what many believed would be a defining moment in the House of Windsor's contemporary history. In an institution bound by ceremony, hierarchy, and a profound aversion to scandal, the open display of raw emotion, shock, anger, fear, shattered any illusion that the crown remained untouched by ordinary human frailty. In the aftermath of Princess Anne's startling move, a growing realization began to take hold among royals, journalists, and ordinary observers alike. Her actions were driven not simply by a desire to expose hidden truths, but by a larger aim to safeguard the monarchy's moral core before it eroded under the weight of modern pressures. In the days that followed the leaked journal entries, palace insiders whispered that Anne's decision to speak so openly, albeit inadvertently, through private writings, stemmed from a conviction that ignoring potential inconsistencies in Meghan's past would invite even greater damage later on. She appeared less motivated by personal animosity and more by a sense of overarching responsibility. The public, initially whipped into a frenzy by talk of yacht girl scandals and sensational headlines, began taking a more measured view as they learned that Anne had not singled out Meghan out of spite, but had, in her meticulous way, cataloged multiple points of concern affecting the royal institution. As the dust settled, conversations on talk shows and social media turned to questions of whether and might, in fact, have done the monarchy a service by forcing transparency where secrecy had prevailed. Media outlets, sensing a shift in tone, started reframing the story. Instead of pouncing on every salacious detail, commentators began contextualizing Anne's revelations within the broader struggle between a centuries-old monarchy and an evolving public sphere that demands sincerity at every turn. Major networks in the United States ran segments highlighting how differently British royals handle scandal compared to celebrity figures in Hollywood or political leaders in Washington. In these broadcasts, an unexpected sense of sympathy emerged for Anne, whose quiet sense of duty had prompted her to break with royal tradition in a way few could have anticipated. Newspaper editorials in the UK, while still critical of the chaos the leaks caused, suggested that if the monarchy truly hoped to command respect in an era of digital immediacy and open debate, such growing pains might be inevitable. Even tabloids that initially trumpeted the scandal began acknowledging that the question was less about one woman's past and more about how the institution as a whole would address the darker corners of its own membership. Within the palace, a striking ambivalence took hold. While certain high-ranking officials remained frustrated by Anne's willingness to lay bare uncomfortable truths, fearing that any internal documents, even if penned in private journals, could be turned against the monarchy, others quietly noted a ripple effect that seemed, paradoxically, to calm tensions. Word circulated that Meghan, after an initial period of shock and confusion, found herself trying to understand Anne's motivations rather than simply condemning them. Members of Meghan's small California-based team said she was moved by the idea that beneath the barred references in Anne's notes lay a profound concern for the monarchy's ethical standing. To Meghan, who had always championed authenticity, this signaled that, perhaps, there was more common ground with Anne than she had initially believed. Harry, too, reportedly sensed that Anne's stance, although exacting, was not rooted in malice but in a deep protective instinct for the family's reputation, an instinct that mirrored, in its own way, his own fierce protectiveness toward Meghan when they first confronted public hostility. Public curiosity about the story did not dissipate, but it took on a different character. Online discussions shifted from finger-pointing to reflecting on the monarchy's capacity to evolve. Blogs, vlogs, and social media threads that once focused on dissecting every alleged yacht sighting or rumored photograph of Meghan with Andrew's circle now mulled over broader questions. Should the royal family institute clearer guidelines on how to vet incoming members? Is there a lesson in Anne's actions about candid, proactive disclosure? Even the phrase institutional compromise, which Anne had reportedly used in her writings, became a hashtag in its own right, with users debating whether the monarchy's traditions of concealment still served any constructive purpose. A wave of international commentary followed, especially in countries that maintain a formal relationship with the crown, like Canada and Australia. Government officials in those nations face questions from local media about whether a monarchy caught in perpetual scandal still represented the values of a modern commonwealth. Replies ranged from neutral platitudes to polite calls for the Windsors to show accountability in an era where such virtues were not optional but expected. Unexpectedly, many voices began to express empathy for and herself, a royal who had long avoided the spotlight and never cultivated a media-friendly persona. In profile pieces and podcasts, historians detailed how Anne's upbringing molded her into a figure who prized workhorse commitment over glamour. Some recalled her early philanthropic efforts that received minimal press, but yielded real results for charities focusing on children and the elderly. Against this background, the leak of her private journals appeared less like a willful betrayal of family and more like an inevitable conclusion to a lifetime of holding the monarchy to high, even rigid, standards. The public gradually started to see Anne not as a meddler, but as someone who viewed royal duty through the lens of unsparing honesty, no matter how uncomfortable. The shift in public sentiment was also shaped by a trickle of clarifications from unnamed palace sources who insisted that Anne's notes were never intended as a condemnation of Meghan alone, but rather as a catalog of worrisome ties that might one day haunt the monarchy as a whole. These sources emphasized that Andrew's controversies loomed large in Anne's mind. She had borne witness, like the rest of the family, to the fallout of his associations with dubious financiers and the humiliating interview that forced him into near seclusion. In that context, discovering any thread linking Meghan to Andrew's old circles raised alarms that were more about institutional vulnerability than personal vendettas. Slowly but surely, the narrative evolved. The story was no longer about a princess outing her nephew's wife, but about a sentinel of tradition calling attention to potential cracks in the castle walls before they became catastrophic. In parallel, Meghan's public stance softened in tone. Where her supporters had initially hurled accusations of sabotage or jealousy at Anne, a quieter faction emerged that preached understanding. Commentators on morning shows and online platforms explored how Meghan's experiences with Hollywood culture could have led her, wittingly or not, into social circles that overlapped with Andrew's. Access is currency in that world, explained one celebrity handler who had worked with well-known actors seeking to network among affluent Europeans. Rather than framing Meghan's past as a moral failing, some now argued that it simply illustrated the complex web of personal history that new royals sometimes bring into the institution. As a result, the potential scandal began appearing more as a cautionary tale about how thoroughly the monarchy should prepare newcomers for the unyielding scrutiny that comes with their titles. Meanwhile, royal watchers noted an unprecedented level of behind-the-scenes communication among the family's various branches. While official statements remained carefully guarded, subtle signs indicated that lines of dialogue had reopened. Harry was rumored to have spoken briefly with and in a private phone call facilitated by senior staff. No cameras, no leaks. Reports mentioned that their exchange, though not entirely harmonious, was civil enough to suggest a path forward that did not involve public mudslinging. Advisors close to King Charles, too, signaled that the monarch might consider a more transparent approach to dealing with internal disagreements, driven by a belief that the public could tolerate honest acknowledgement of mistakes better than evasive silence. Though no formal policy changes were announced, watchers felt a shift in how the Crown might handle adversity going forward. All of this unfolded under the glare of international media, which marveled at the nuanced turn in a story that had, at first, seemed destined to become a tale of unbridled family conflict. Journalists covering the monarchy for decades remarked on the rarity of witnessing the British public's opinions pivot so swiftly, from indignation and sensationalism to a measured curiosity about deeper issues like accountability and integrity. Figures typically critical of the royals found themselves impressed by Anne's courage, even if it came in an unintended form, while longtime supporters of the monarchy admitted they were intrigued by the new dynamic that had emerged. Panel discussions on global news channels took on a thoughtful tone, focusing not on the tabloid-friendly angles, but on whether these events signified a monarchy wrestling with modern democratic ideals. Transparency, open dialogue, and the willingness to confront past entanglements, however embarrassing. Amid this changing climate, a nascent sense of mutual respect flickered. Observers who had aligned themselves either staunchly with or staunchly with Meghan began conceding that both women acted from convictions shaped by very different life experiences. And, raised in an era of strict protocol, believed in safeguarding the monarchy through unwavering standards. Meghan, who navigated show business before love led her to royal life, believed in controlling her own narrative. The public, in witnessing these two perspectives clash, discovered an oddly universal theme about identity, tradition, and adaptation. By reframing the alleged scandal as a question of how an age-old institution can accommodate new voices without losing its essence, the discourse took on a more empathetic quality, leaving behind a measure of shrill antagonism for something more measured and reflective. In the end, the royal family found that confronting hard truths did more to preserve their dignity than endless efforts to conceal them. Princess Anne's resolve opened a path toward honest reflection rather than continued evasion, an unexpected step that underscored timeless virtues of humility, duty, and mutual respect. Gradually, Harry and Meghan recognized that the only way forward required acknowledging mistakes and learning from them, while other senior royals, long wary of public scrutiny, accepted that the monarchy's renewal depended on transparency over secrecy. Though Andrew's legacy remained complicated, the family's willingness to engage candidly with the past began to restore public faith. In a final, emblematic gesture, Anne and Meghan were seen together at a charity event, briefly exchanging words that hinted at cautious reconciliation. The image crystallized a renewed commitment to the Crown's core values, a powerful reminder that, in any era, honesty and service form the bedrock of genuine, lasting respect.